Early detection is key for treating skin cancer, right? We hear that all the time. But what if I told you that one day, just snapping a selfie could be enough to figure out your risk of getting skin cancer?
Yeah, it does sound a little bit like science fiction, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But honestly, we're seeing some really incredible advancements in healthcare these days, and the research you shared about using AI to predict skin cancer from facial features, that's a perfect example.
It really is amazing. The study itself is called Predicting Skin Cancer Risk from Facial Images with an Explainable Artificial Intelligence, XAI-based
Oh.
approach,
Yeah.
a proof of concept study. It was published in a clinical medicine, and it really digs into this whole idea. I'll be honest, when I first heard about it, I was a bit skeptical. It sounds almost too futuristic to be true, but when you actually look at the science behind it, it's pretty eye-opening.
I get why you'd be skeptical. It's not every day you hear you can predict diseases from a photo. But think about it. Our faces, they reveal a lot more than we realize. And I'm not just talking about emotions. Our faces, they carry traces of our genetics, our lifestyles, even the environments we've been exposed to. And all those things, they play a part in our overall health, including the risk of developing certain diseases, like skin cancer, for example.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. When you put it like that, it starts to seem less like magic. But how do we actually go from a picture to predicting something as complex as skin cancer? That's the part where I start to get lost.
It's not magic, that's for sure. It's some pretty advanced science, I'll give you that. This particular study, they used data from something called the Rotterdam study. It's a huge, long-term project happening over in the Netherlands. Basically, they've been following this massive group of people for decades now, collecting all sorts of health data along the way.
Wow, decades. That's a really in-depth study.
It is. And one of the crucial things for this skin cancer research that back in 2010, they started taking standardized facial photos of all the participants. So now we're talking about having a visual record alongside all that health data.
So it's like having this incredible link between someone's face and their health over time.
Exactly. It's like a window into how subtle changes in facial features, maybe things we wouldn't even notice, could be tied to the development of something like skin cancer years down the line. And that's where the AI comes into play.
Okay, so let's talk about this AI for a minute.
Mhm.
How does it actually work? What's it doing with these photos? When I hear I can't help but think of, robots taking over the world, that kind of thing.
Well, this AI is definitely more about helping people than taking over the world. The type of AI they used for this is called deep learning, which is basically teaching a computer to see patterns in massive amounts of data.
So kind of like a superpowered detective, but instead of cases, it's sifting through faces and health records.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. It's designed to spot those incredibly subtle variations in our faces, things we probably wouldn't even think twice about. But to this AI, they could hold important clues about our health.
So this AI detective, how's it actually doing its work? Is it like looking for wrinkles and sunspots, those kinds of things?
Yeah, it's definitely checking those out, but it goes way beyond that.
Yeah.
We're talking over 200 subtle facial characteristics that it analyzes, things that you or I probably wouldn't even notice. It's like, imagine you have this giant puzzle, right? 1,000 pieces, and it's a picture of someone's face.
Okay, got it. I'm picturing it.
So some of those puzzle pieces, they're going to be easy to spot, right? You've got your eyes, your nose, your mouth. Those are like the well-known risk factors for skin cancer, things like age or family history. But this AI, it's looking at the tiniest little details in each piece, the things you'd only see if you were really, really studying it, like the texture, the shape, even the color variations that our eyes just wouldn't pick up on their own.
Wow, 200 tiny details. That's incredible.
Right. And those tiny details, those are what they call endophenotypes. And those endophenotypes, they can tell us a lot about someone's health.
Okay, so it's like the AI is piecing together this health puzzle, right,
Yeah.
using these clues to figure out if someone's at a higher risk. But how do we know it's interpreting all these clues correctly?
That's the really cool part. That's where this whole explainable AI thing comes in. Because in the past, a lot of these AI systems, they were kind of a black box. They'd spit out a result, but we didn't really know how they got there. But with explainable AI, we can actually see what's going on under the hood. The researchers can pinpoint which endophenotypes are the most telling, the ones that really seem to be linked to skin cancer risk.
So we're not just blindly trusting the AI, we can actually understand its thought process.
Exactly. And that's huge, especially in healthcare, right? You want to be able to trust the technology that's giving you these kinds of predictions.
Absolutely. So let's get to the big question. How accurate is this thing? Can it actually predict skin cancer just from our faces?
The results are really promising. They found that this AI, it was really good at predicting who would and wouldn't develop skin cancer. In fact, it actually outperformed the predictions based on those 18 known risk factors we talked
Wait,
about.
hold on. It did better than the methods doctors are using now. Like, by how much?
So they used something called a C-index to measure the accuracy, which is basically a score from 0 to 1, where 1 is a perfect prediction. The AI got a C-index of 0.72. The traditional risk factor model, that only scored 0.59.
Okay, yeah, that's a pretty big difference. That's definitely saying something. So what was it picking up on? I mean, did it find the same things that we already know about skin cancer, or was there anything surprising?
Well, it actually did a great job of confirming a lot of those known links. Like, it found a strong connection between skin cancer risk and things like age, wrinkles, how long someone had lived in a sunny place, things like that.
Which makes sense because those are all things doctors already consider, right?
Exactly. But there were some really interesting findings too, like, for instance, the link between BMI and skin cancer risk.
You mean?
So the AI actually found an inverse correlation there, meaning that in this study, the people with higher BMIs were less likely to get skin cancer, which even the researchers thought was a little strange.
That's really counterintuitive. You'd think that having a higher BMI might, make you more susceptible to health problems, not less.
Right. It's definitely something that needs more research. Maybe it has to do with lifestyle factors within that particular group of people, or even something as simple as people with higher BMIs wearing more clothing so they're not as exposed to the sun. But it just goes to show this AI can not only back up what we already know, but can also lead us to totally new avenues of research, maybe even challenge some of our assumptions.
It's like it's not just reading faces, it's finding hidden connections that could change how we think about skin cancer completely, and maybe even other diseases too.
Exactly. That's what makes this research so exciting.
Okay, so this is all super fascinating, but let's talk about the real world for a second. How far away are we from actually using this technology? Are we all going to be showing our selfies to our doctors at our next checkup?
That's the big question, right? And as amazing as these results are, we
Right.
have to remember this is still pretty early research. It's like we've just figured out how to make a light bulb, which is huge, but it's going to be a while before we're lighting up entire cities.
So what needs to happen to get us there? What are the next steps to take this from the lab to the doctor's office?
Well, before we even think about making this a regular part of healthcare, we have to make sure it's as accurate and reliable as possible. And one of the big things is this AI needs to be tested on a much wider range of people. The Rotterdam study, they focused on a pretty specific group, mainly people of Dutch European ancestry. But to be really confident that this technology can work for everyone, regardless of their background, we need to train and test it on a much more diverse data set. We need to include people of all ethnicities, ages, you name it.
Makes sense. We don't want to end up with something that's biased or inaccurate for certain groups of people. What else is there?
Another big one is the type of images we're using. Remember the Rotterdam study, they used those professional grade photos taken in a controlled setting. But if we really want this technology to be accessible, it's got to work just as well with everyday photos. The kind we take on our phones, maybe in different lighting, different angles.
Right, because most of us aren't exactly scheduling a photo shoot for our yearly checkup.
Exactly. So the AI, it has to be able to handle all those variations.
Okay, so there are definitely some hurdles, but it sounds like the potential here is huge. I mean, imagine you could just open an app on your phone, take a quick selfie, and bam, you've got some idea of your skin cancer risk. That could be revolutionary.
It really could. We could go from just reacting to skin cancer to actually getting ahead of it, preventing it in the first place. And the possibilities for personalized healthcare are incredible. Imagine this technology could be part of those telehealth platforms, so people could get a preliminary risk assessment remotely. Then, depending on those results, they could get personalized recommendations. Maybe they need to schedule a follow-up with a dermatologist. Maybe they just need to be more careful about sun protection. Who knows what we could do with this?
It's like having a personal health assistant looking out for you 24/7. I have to admit, that's pretty amazing. Although I do have to play devil's advocate here for a second and think about the potential downsides.
Oh, absolutely, you're right. Whenever you're talking about a new technology, especially one that deals with something as personal as our health, you've got to think about the ethical implications. Privacy, for one. If we're all uploading our selfies for medical analysis, that data has to be protected, no question.
Absolutely. We can't let this technology be misused or end up creating a whole new set of problems down the line.
Exactly. And it's really important to remember this technology, it's a tool. It's not a crystal ball. It can provide incredibly valuable information, but it should never replace a doctor's expertise and judgment. At the end of the day, any prediction that this AI makes, it has to be confirmed by a medical professional using traditional methods.
So it's about giving doctors more information, not taking them out of the equation completely.
Exactly. It's about working together. And that's where I think the real power of this technology lies. It has the potential to make healthcare more personalized, more proactive, and ultimately more effective for everyone.
This has been an incredible look into the future of healthcare. I'll admit, the idea of using AI to predict skin cancer from a selfie, it sounded a little out there at first, but after diving into the science and hearing about the possibilities, I'm really blown away.
Me too. And this is just the beginning. AI and healthcare, they're just starting to really come together, and who knows what amazing discoveries are just around the corner.
It really feels like the future of healthcare is closer than we think, and it might be as simple as snapping a selfie. Well, that's it for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us. And listeners, if you want to learn more about this fascinating research and see those incredible images we talked about, you can find links to the study and other resources in our show notes. Until next time, stay curious.